Hey everybody, thanks for giving a click for today's video. Seeing as I've already done one on the ships of the Covenant Navy, I figured I could do something on the opposite side and make a video today about the starships used by the UNSC and humanity. I figured it could be something fun to do as another side of the same coin of the topic. Again, there is a lot of information here with a lot of names and different vessels, so if I miss something or if I get something incorrect, feel free to let me know and offer me just a small bit of leeway there. But with that being said, welcome to this episode of Reclaimer ASMR. In the UNSC, ships are operated by a number of different departments and branches. Warships were often operated by the UNSC Navy and deployed by UNSC Fleet Command. In the cases of vessels that were used for purposes other than combat, such as the frigate UNSC Swift Justice, those were operated by groups such as the Incident Response and Investigation Division of the UNSC. The UNSC Department of Commercial Shipping, for another example, operated a large number of freighters and cargo vessels. In service of humanity, there is a total of 8 known classes of ships, 6 of which counting as dedicated war vessels, and 2 of which counting as support type ships. These ship classes are as follows: carriers, cruisers, destroyers, frigates, corvettes, prowlers, colony ships, and cargo and transportation vessels. As we did for the Covenant Navy, we will begin with the support type vessels utilized by humanity and the UNSC, the first of which is the colony ship class. There are 2 known types of colony ship that were in service with humanity, the first of which being the Banta class transport ship. The Banta class transport is a fairly sizable craft with an enclosed flight deck separated from the main cabin and troop bay by various internal hatches, and they require only a small crew to operate. They are loosely based on military cargo transports of the late 24th century and traditionally served as ferries capable of carrying up to 400 passengers, or use their extensive cargo holds to move smaller vessels. The ships have been in service with the UNSC since 2517. Although classified as colony ships, which were used to bring in people onto newly discovered worlds, during the Human Covenant War, the Banta-class transports were used extensively as evacuation craft for worlds that had come under attack by the Covenant. The only known ship of the Banta-class line is the UNSC Dartmouth, which, while in transit to Eridanus II in 2517, was intercepted by the insurrectionist frigate Iliad, its crew presumably killed in the engagement. The next ship type under the colony ship class is the Phoenix class colonial support vessel. The Phoenix class colonial support vessel is a colony ship used by the United Earth government with the hull classification symbol of CFV. In addition to ferrying colonists to newly settled worlds, they are used to carry equipment such as prefabricated colony starter units, hydroponics, and other facilities. First commissioned in 2362 during the golden age of human colonization, Phoenix-class colony ships were designed to transport colonists, terraforming equipment, and other infrastructure from an inner colony such as Earth to a distant colony world. For decades after 2362, the Phoenix-class colony ship was the largest interstellar vehicle created by humanity. A single Phoenix-class colony ship is capable of setting up a self-sufficient colony in just 6 months. On lusher or more verdant colony worlds, the Phoenix-class colony ship would stay on station in orbit, or act as a dedicated transport for personnel and resources to and from the Sol system. Known ships of the Phoenix-class line include the CAA First Reverie, which was one of the very first Phoenix-class ships used to colonize worlds in 2362. The UNSC Phoenix, which was the lead ship of its line, and the UNSC Spirit of Fire, which was converted into a dedicated warship within the UNSC Navy. After following the Covenant to an unknown Forerunner installation in 2531 and sacrificing its slip-space drive in the ensuing battle, the Spirit of Fire was listed as lost with all hands after search operations concluded in 2534. In 2559, the vessel, along with all of her surviving crew, was mysteriously drawn into a slipspace portal and guided to the Forerunner Installation 00, the Ark. The next class of UNSC and human support ships is the Cargo and Transportation class. Up first, we have the Spring Hill class mining ship. The Spring Hill class mining ship, as its name would suggest, was a starship predominantly used for mining and transporting resources between worlds. Select vessels of the class are utilized by military forces like the UNSC and refit as wartime ordnance transports. These ships may be referred to instead as Spring Hill class transports, though it is unclear whether this is simply an alternate nomenclature or a deliberate subclassification of ship. The only known ship of the Spring Hill class line is the CAA Heavy Burden, which was repurposed by the UNSC as such an ordnance transport during the Human Covenant War. Next, we have the Vancouver-class courier ship. The Vancouver-class courier is a non-combat spacecraft employed by the Unified Earth Government as a cargo transport and diplomatic shuttle. While not much is known of the Vancouver class, it is a fast, versatile, and reliable courier ship. This, combined with its cargo size and unique sensor features, allowed it to gain a large number of governmental contracts and maintains a strong presence in the inner colonies. The only listed ship in the Vancouver class is the Han, which was used by Dr. Catherine Halsey in 2517 during her study of Spartan II candidates in Sector 4 of human-controlled space. We will now move on to the dedicated warship classes in service with humanity and the UNSC, the first of which being the carrier class. Carriers are capital warships used for transport and deployment of fighters and ground troops during command and control operations. UNSC carriers range from light warships to among the largest ships in service. The smallest light carriers can be lower than a kilometer from stem to stern smaller than a cruiser, while the largest carriers are multiple kilometers long. Most carriers are crewed by hundreds to thousands and can carry numerous space, air, and ground vehicles. Befitting their role, their primary asset is a large number of space fighters or dropships. The first classification of ship under the carrier class is the Poseidon-class light carrier. The Poseidon-class light carrier is sleek, elongated, and somewhat cylindrical in general shape. Its structure comprises two main sections covered with white plating. In the fore section, the plating mostly covers the vessel's dorsal surface. Although many times smaller than other vessels in the carrier class, what it loses in size and armament, the Poseidon makes up for with its ease of manufacture in the war-ravaged shipyards over Mars and Jupiter. The Poseidon additionally only requires a small crew to operate, allowing it to be pressed into service in 2553, only months after the end of the war. Known ships of the Poseidon-class line include the UNSC Milwaukee, which was famed for having a reverse-engineered slipspace drive, reducing slipspace travel to mere hours, and replacing its cryochambers with large stadium-style seating instead. And the UNSC Poseidon, which was the lead ship of its class. Up next, we have the Orion-class assault carrier. The Orion-class assault carrier was built for war against rebellious human colonies during the insurrection. As the Human Covenant War began in 2525, Orion-class assault carriers commonly served as flagships, serving in numerous battles throughout the outer colonies in desperate defensive actions against the Covenant. The Covenant War saw the destruction of most Orion-class carriers, as many of these vessels sacrificed themselves to buy time for civilians and troops to be evacuated to the inner colonies. Known ships of the Orion-class line include the UNSC Fifth Winter, which participated in the Human Covenant War, and the UNSC Orion, which was the lead ship of its line. The next ship type in the carrier class is the Epoch-class heavy carrier. The Epoch class entered service in the UNSC Navy in 2475, prior to the outbreak of the insurrection. It is the heaviest variety of carrier in service, behind only the immense supercarriers. The Epoch class's tonnage exceeds that of both the Poseidon and the Orion classes. Often forming the core of most UNSC fleets, this heavy carrier is capable of taking extreme damage in combat. It is one of the most lauded designs in Soviet heavy machinery's fleet. Known ships of the Epoch heavy carrier line include the UNSC Atlas, which hosted all of the successfully augmented Spartan II candidates after their procedures, the UNSC Epoch, which was the lead ship of its line, and the UNSC Ozymandias, which was destroyed by the Banished in the 2557 Battle of Mars. The next ship classification under the carrier class is the Punic-class supercarrier. The Punic-class supercarrier was commissioned towards the final years of the 25th century to aid the unified Earth government in combating the spread of the insurrection. This supercarrier was used for direct confrontation with Covenant capital ships, and was one of the few UNSC ships effective in this role. The armaments and armor of a Punic-class supercarrier dwarf those of any other carrier in service with the UNSC Navy. It is one of the largest known vessels in human history, whose total length and tonnage is to date known to be superseded by only the UNSC Infinity. Known ships of the Punic-class line include the UNSC Punic, which was the lead ship of the class, and the UNSC Trafalgar, which was the former flagship of the Epsilon Eridani fleet. Although surviving a majority of the Human Covenant War, and becoming famed within the UNSC for doing so, she was destroyed during the invasion of Reach in 2552. Last but not least, we have the final ship classification within the carrier class, that being the Infinity-class supercarrier. The Infinity-class supercarrier is the largest and most technologically advanced ship ever constructed by humanity. As the ceremonial flagship for the entirety of the UNSC Navy, its roles also include galactic exploration and large-scale force deployment. There are only two known ships of the Infinity-class line, the first being the UNSC Infinity, the lead ship of its class, and the UNSC Eternity, which is the sister ship of the UNSC Infinity. However, it is incomplete as of 2559. For the next class of ship, we have the cruiser class. UNSC cruisers are heavily armed and armored warships designed with an emphasis on weaponry and armor over fighter complements. The UNSC commonly uses cruisers as their heaviest warships, designed to engage and destroy enemy warships that may otherwise threaten a fleet's carrier force. For the first classification of cruiser, we have the Marathon-class heavy cruiser. Built as a replacement for the Halcyon-class light cruiser, the Marathon-class is nearly 1.2 kilometers long, heavily armored, and equipped with 2 magnetic accelerator cannons and an impressive arsenal of missiles. These vessels were most often deployed in attack and defense roles, serving as the backbone of UNSC fleets, though they were also popular among high-ranking UNSC officers for use as command ships, and were even deployed in rare instances in a light carrier configuration. They were primarily used during the Human Covenant War, though their numbers were heavily diminished and only very few remain in service in the conflict's aftermath alongside their successor vessel, the Autumn-class heavy cruiser. Known ships of the Marathon-class line include the UNSC Canberra, which was the flagship of Fleet Admiral Joseph Harper. It led the 5th Fleet against the Covenant during the Battle for Earth on October 20th, 2552. The UNSC Feeling Lucky, which was part of the 5th Fleet as well. It was destroyed during the Battle of Earth on October 20th, 2552. The UNSC Leviathan, which was the flagship of Vice Admiral Michael Stanforth. It was severely damaged during the Battle of Sigma Octantis IV in July 2552 and was destroyed during the Fall of Reach. The UNSC Prophecy, which was destroyed during the Harvest Campaign in February 2531, and the UNSC Say My Name, which deployed ODSTs to board Solemn Penance as part of Operation Bum Rush during the Battle of Mombasa on October 20th, 2552. The next classification of cruiser we have is the Halcyon class light cruiser. The Halcyon class light cruiser is a cruiser classification designed by Dr. Robert McLeese before 2507 with the hull classification symbol of C. Originally designed for attack and defense role in mind, they were also capable of being used as troop and supply transports. Their service lives were short due to a unique hull design that was too costly to construct and maintain, with low maneuverability, poor armament, and concerns about their tactical viability. They were replaced by the Marathon class heavy cruiser and later the Autumn class heavy cruiser. Despite the disadvantages of the original design, the heavily modified UNSC Pillar of Autumn proved to be one of the most effective and costly ships deployed in the war. Known ships of the Halcyon class line include the UNSC Pillar of Autumn, which participated in the Battle for Arcadia in 2531, destroying a Covenant battlecruiser alongside 3 other human ships and providing ground support for the UNSC Spirit of Fire. After receiving a refit in 2552, the Autumn, captained by Jacob Keyes, was selected as the Spartan II's chariot for Operation Red Flag due to its new resilience and firepower. It was destroyed by John 117 in the Battle of Installation 04 through a wildcat destabilization of the engines as a means to destroy the Forerunner installation. The UNSC Persian Gate, which participated in the Battle of Alpha Corvette II in 2526, the UNSC Roman Blue, which was the first ship to be captained by Terence Hood. It participated in the Battle for Arcadia. It was shot down in battle between 2535 and 2552 and crashed on Iro. Wreckage later salvaged by the Ace of Spades before an unknown vessel, possibly belonging to Oni, glassed Roman Blue's remains. And the UNSC Toulouse, the sister ship of the Pillar of Autumn. It participated in an engagement over an unidentified Forerunner installation with the Covenant fleet. Up next, we have the Autumn class heavy cruiser. The Autumn class heavy cruiser is a class of capital ship in service with the UNSC Navy, with the members of this class given the hull classification symbol of CA. Manufactured by Synoviet Heavy Machinery, these cruisers mostly fulfill attack or command roles within the fleet, though some also provide escort support when needed. Commissioned following the end of the Human Covenant War to form the core of the reconstituted UNSC Navy's task forces, the Autumn class was designed to be the successor for the Marathon class and the Halcyon class, as most cruisers of those classes were destroyed or decommissioned in the war. The name behind the Autumn class is derived from the colloquialism for that of its lead ship, which in turn is named for the legendary Halcyon class UNSC Pillar of Autumn. Adapting the improvements and modifications made to Pillar of Autumn for Operation Red Flag in 2552, the Autumn class heavy cruiser represents a considerable leap forward in human warship design, a testament to the UNSC's modern technological prowess. Known ships of the Autumn class line include the UNSC Euclid's Anvil, which is in service with the UNSC Navy, the UNSC Pillar of Autumn II, which is the lead ship of the class, and the UNSC Song of the East, which is assigned to the Office of Naval Intelligence and was once an escort to the UNSC Infinity. The next classification in the cruiser class is the Valiant class Super Heavy Cruiser. The Valiant class Super Heavy Cruiser was originally drafted by the UNSC Navy as a compromise between a battleship and a heavy cruiser. However, the class went through years of feasibility studies and redesigns before UNSC Valiant was commissioned and released from her Martian shipyard in 2493. It is among the most powerful vessels in the UNSC fleet, and one of their primary uses is fleet command and coordination. Known ships of the Valiant class line include the UNSC Everest, which was the flagship of Vice Admiral Preston Cole. It was officially destroyed at the Battle of Sci Serpentis on April 18, 2543, and the UNSC Valiant, which was the lead ship of the class. It was commissioned in 2493. The next class of ship in service with the UNSC is the Destroyer class. Destroyers are fast, maneuverable warships designed for long-term endurance and are intended to escort larger vessels such as cruisers and carriers. The first classification of ship in the destroyer line is the Able class heavy destroyer. The Able class was designed as a compromise between the various frigate and cruiser lines of humanity, intending to take advantage of new technologies and increased budgets to push naval architects in new directions. Known ships of the Able class line include the UNSC Able, which was the lead ship of its class, and the UNSC Gorgon, which was the first heavy destroyer to be outfitted with a magnetic accelerator cannon. The next classification in the destroyer class is the Diligence class light destroyer. The Diligence class is an older classification of warship, which entered service during the 25th century and was originally classified as a cruiser. During the era in which it was designed, human starships had much less firepower than their successors, resulting in a ship that is by modern standards substantially underarmed. As such, it was reclassified as a destroyer later in its life to better reflect the evolving standard of ship construction. By 2525, the class had been retired for decades. However, with the dawn of the Human Covenant War, some were brought back into service with the UNSC Navy. and were retrofitted for combat against the Covenant. Known ships of the Diligence class line include the UNSC Kronstadt, which participated in Operation Grey Veil, and the UNSC Winged Hussar. The next classification of ship in the destroyer class is the Halberd class light destroyer. Manufactured by Synoviet Heavy Machinery, the Halberd class was in service with the Navy during the insurrection, throughout, and after the Human Covenant War. As with the other destroyer classes, the Halberd combines heavy armament with high speed and thick, high-quality armor. A relatively small class of warship, these destroyers can use wolfpack tactics to engage more powerful Covenant warships with coordinated MAC fire and hit-and-run attacks to overwhelm their targets' often superior defenses. Known ships of the Halberd class line include the UNSC The Heart of Midlothian, which was destroyed near Algolis after an unsuccessful Covenant raiding party attempt, the UNSC Herodotus, which was destroyed during the fall of Reach, the UNSC Iroquois, which was commanded by Jacob Keyes and used to perform the famed Keyes Loop, and the UNSC Pioneer, which served as a staging ship for an operation against the United Rebel Front. After the Halberd class, there are a large number of named ships in the UNSC fleet that do fall under the destroyer class. However, there's not really a whole lot of information here as to details on their design or armament, so although multiple ships exist, I've decided to omit that part of the video since there's not a lot of information to go off of. The next class of ship that was in service with the UNSC is the Frigate class. In the UNSC Navy, frigates form the backbone of any fleet or battle group. As their most ubiquitous warship, the UNSC uses frigates in a broad range of roles, ranging from heavy air support to fighter escort and fleet engagements. Some UNSC frigates are equipped with a sizable cargo bay for larger dropships and armor complements. The UNSC has also employed light frigates equipped with stealth systems in a specialized reconnaissance role. The first classification of ship in the frigate class is the Anlis class light frigate. The Anlis class frigate is the smallest frigate currently in service with the UNSC Navy, with a length of 372 meters, only just barely outclassing the larger classifications of UNSC corvettes, such as the Lancer class fast attack corvette at 341 meters. Outside of physical combat, the Anlis is specialized for support roles in the fleet and can be fitted with numerous modular mission packs. These include refits intended for reconnaissance or disruption. The only known ship of the Anlis line is the UNSC Anlitz, which is the lead ship of its class. The next classification of ship in the frigate class is the Charon class light frigate. The Charon class light frigate is a type of escort ship manufactured by Synoviet Heavy Machinery and saw service within the CMA Navy and the UNSC Navy. Ships of this class are primarily used in fleet escort duties, planetary defense, and the landing and deployment of mobile troops. At 490 meters in length, the Charon is one of the smaller vessels in UNSC service and utilizes the standard design style followed by its siblings, the Paris-class and Stalwart-class frigates. Known ships of the Charon-class line include the UNSC Aegis Fate, which was deployed on an excavation mission over Installation 00, the UNSC Chioglassa, which was destroyed during the Battle of Earth on October 20th, 2552, the UNSC Forward Unto Dawn, which was captained by Commander Miranda Keyes and participated in the final battles of the Human Covenant War, the UNSC Providence, which served as a fleet escort ship within the UNSC Navy, the CMA Arabia and CMA Vostok, which were light frigates operated by the Colonial Military Authority, and the Iliad, which was a Charon-class light frigate used by the insurrectionists in the Eridanus system. Up next, we have the Mulsanne-class light frigate. The Mulsanne-class light frigate was created by Synoviet Heavy Machinery by naval architects Bernard Christensen and Jacques Thomas, and was launched in 2553. When it was launched, the frigate represented a new generation of UNSC starship design, integrating the most recent innovations in shipbuilding and weaponry, such as directed energy weapons as the primary cannon, instead of a more traditional magnetic accelerator cannon. Although it is classed as a light frigate, Mulsanne frigates fill a similar role to the older Paris-class heavy frigate, optimized for swift offensive strikes and thus carrying a diverse weapons complement. As such, it is considered one of the most adaptable warships in the UNSC Navy. Known ships of the Mulsanne-class line include the UNSC Mortal Reverie, which was shot down during the Installation 07 conflict, and the UNSC Panama, which during the same conflict was locked in a brutal stalemate with a Covenant assault carrier, as its weapons were not strong enough to damage the ship, and in turn, the assault carrier's weaponry was too powerful and was concerned about destroying Forerunner artifacts that the frigate was near. The next ship classification we have in the frigate class is the Paris-class heavy frigate. The Paris-class heavy frigate is a ship that was introduced only 2 years prior to the outbreak of the Human Covenant War, but was considered extremely effective on a ton-for-ton basis, resulting in it rapidly becoming one of the most constructed ships in the Navy by war's end. The Paris saw notable employment in the final battles of the war, the Fall of Reach, and the Battle for Earth, where its lighter cousins are focused on defensive and escort roles. The Paris class is designed for ship-to-ship fighting and orbital security. Known ships of the Paris class line include the UNSC Andraste, the UNSC Commonwealth, which participated in the Battle of Kai Seti IV and was decommissioned by 2552 in a shipwrecking yard on Reach, the UNSC Gettysburg, which was heavily damaged during the Fall of Reach, salvaged and returned to Earth, UNSC Grafton, which participated and was destroyed in the fall of Reach. The UNSC Promise of Dawn, which went missing after the fall of Reach, but was found and destroyed in 2553 on Sephun 3. The UNSC Saratoga, which participated in the fall of Reach as well. The UNSC Saturn, which participated in the containment of the flood outbreak at Site 22. And the UNSC Savannah, which participated in the battles of the fall of Reach and was destroyed during Operation Uppercut. The next classification of the frigate class in service with the UNSC is the Stalwart class light frigate. The Stalwart class light frigate is an escort ship in service with the UNSC Navy and manufactured by Synoviet Heavy Machinery. These frigates were designated with the hull code FFG. The Stalwart class are used primarily in fleet escort duties, providing screens for larger capital ships. Designed with planetary defense in mind, Stalwart frigates have proven successful due to their superb balance between fleet support and troop transportation. Known ships of the Stalwart class line include the UNSC Amberclad, which participated in the Battle of Earth on October 20th, 2552, and followed the Prophet of Regret's flagship Solemn Penance to Installation 05. It was subsequently captured by the Flood during the humans' attempt to secure the activation index for the ring, crash-landed on High Charity, and was used to completely consume the Covenant's mobile homeworld. And the UNSC Stalwart Dawn, which served as a support ship over Reach during the evacuation of New Alexandria. The last known classification of ship within the frigate class is the Strident class heavy frigate. The Strident class heavy frigate is a type of heavy frigate in service with the UNSC Navy, designated with the hull code FFG. Manufactured over Mars and Tribute by Aerofabrique SA, these frigates are used as both escort ships and swift attack vessels. Outfitted with energy shielding and powerful weaponry, the Strident class represents one of the newest generations of warships within the UNSC Navy. Blurring the lines between frigate and destroyer, the lean and lethal Strident class is considered an invaluable asset to the Navy. Up to 10 of these frigates can be stored in the internal hangars and docking clamps of the UNSC Infinity. After an initial assault, they are deployed en masse to deliver a final crushing blow and mop up any stragglers in the process. Known ships in the Strident class line include the UNSC Strident, which was the lead ship of its class. The next class of ship in service within the UNSC Navy is the Corvette class. Corvettes are generally small, maneuverable, and lightly armed. They are usually smaller than a frigate, making it the smallest warship type within a fleet. UNSC Corvettes are small patrol vessels that carry no fighter complements, only accommodating a hangar large enough to fit an SKT-13 shuttlecraft. The first classification of ship in the Corvette class is the Gladius class heavy corvette. The Gladius class heavy corvette is a class of corvette in service with the UNSC Navy, designated with the hull code of FS. It is manufactured by Tansec AB, and these corvettes excel in interdiction, patrol, and security roles. During the Human Covenant War, the Gladius-class heavy corvette was used by UNSC Navy battle groups assigned to the inner colonies. As such, they were substantially outgunned by most Covenant warships, and rarely participated in major fleet engagements. Known ships of the Gladius-class line include the UNSC Sagan Blue, which had a deadly encounter with two Magyar Mutan Et pattern storm cutters near New Carthage. The next classification of ship we have in the Corvette class is the Lancer class fast attack corvette. The Lancer class fast attack corvette was employed by the Colonial Military Authority and later the UNSC. Overgunned and underranged for most insurrection-era deployments, the Lancer class found its calling in the months and years following the Covenant's assault on Harvest. The class's limited endurance, both in terms of ship stores and fuel, restricted their use in wartime expeditionary operations, and most were relegated to internal patrol and planetary defense picket duties. Many were even stripped of their slip space drives, with the extra space used for additional ammunition and crew comforts. The only known ship of the Lancer class line is the UNSC Lancer, which is the lead ship of its line. Up next in the Corvette class, we have the Mako class Corvette. Mako class ships were generally well regarded, but hated by shipyard personnel due to numerous maintenance issues. The Mako class entered service in 2388 and rapidly became one of the most ubiquitous examples of the corvette role throughout human space. During its long career, the Mako was used by many military organizations, including the UNSC Navy, CMA Navy, and other security forces throughout the Sol system and extrasolar colonies. The Mako's maintenance issues would eventually gain it infamy in the shipyards where it was serviced, ultimately leading to the UNSC Navy choosing to retire it in the early stages of the Human Covenant War. Known ships of the Mako class line include the UNSC Mako, the lead ship of its line, and the UNSC Pony Express, which was recommended by Lord Terence Hood for Blue Team to use to get to Onyx. The last known classification of ship within the Corvette class is the Schultz-class missile corvette. The Schultz-class missile corvette was fitted with a good mix of cannon and missile batteries, backed by a comprehensive sensor system. It was classified, at the time of introduction to the CMA Navy's fleet, as a state-of-the-art frigate. As larger ships entered service, both its classification and stature diminished, but it remained a vessel that could be counted upon to punch far above its tonnage class. The only known ship of the Schultz class line is the UNSC Schultz, the lead ship of its class. The final class of ship in the UNSC's wartime fleet is the Prowler class. Prowlers, sometimes nicknamed Bats by UNSC personnel, are a specialized form of stealth-capable corvette within the UNSC Navy. Prowlers are used by the UNSC Navy for stealth infiltration and exfiltration, electronic intelligence gathering, and mine-laying operations. Prowlers are exclusively operated by the Office of Naval Intelligence's personnel serving under the Prowler Corps. Most Prowlers are designated with the hull classification symbol PRO, followed by a numeric designation. The Prowler's primary role is to stay hidden while safely gathering battlefield intelligence, avoiding direct combat due to its light weapons and armor. The first classification of ship within the Prowler class is the Eclipse-class Prowler. The Eclipse-class Prowler is a class of stealth vessel used by the UNSC Navy. They had entered service by 2526 and served as part of Task Force Yama during Operation Silent Storm. During the operation, the Eclipses served in squadrons alongside Razor-class Prowlers, with each squadron led by a Sahara-class Prowler. Known ships of the Eclipse-class line include the UNSC Bad Moon Rising, a Prowler part of Operation Bookworm, the UNSC Bucephalus, a Prowler part of Operation Wolf, and the UNSC Eclipse, the lead ship of its line. The next classification of ship within the Prowler class is the Razor-class Prowler. The Razor class entered service in 2499 during the insurrection and served throughout some of the Prowler Corps' most large-scale operations. They were considered old by 2553. Known ships of the Razor-class line include the UNSC Ghost Song, Ghost Star, and Ghost Wind, which were Prowlers in Task Force Yama's Ghost Flight, and the UNSC Razor, which was the lead ship of its class. Next among the Prowler class, we have the Sahara-class Heavy Prowler. The Sahara is one of the most common and well-known Prowlers in UNSC service and stands among the ranks as one of the largest and most heavily armed. Known ships of the Sahara-class line include PRO 49776, which was used to conduct Operation Warm Blanket in 2544, the UNSC Port Stanley, which was used by Kilo 5 in the summer of 2553, the UNSC Aladdin, which transported Dr. Catherine Halsey to the UNSC Infinity in 2558, and the UNSC Dusk, which was present during the Battle of Onyx. The next classification of ship within the Prowler class is the Winter-class Prowler. The Winter-class Prowler, also known as the Winter-class Stealth Corvette, is a Prowler in service with the UNSC Navy, primarily designed for speed and stealth with the purpose of deep space reconnaissance. Winter-class Prowlers commonly monitor former member species of the Covenant and human insurrectionists, precautionary measures taken by the Office of Naval Intelligence to ensure humanity's safety. Ships of the class are often designated with the hull classification symbol PRO, though those that receive the prototypical upgrades have the 9 hull code, denoting an unclassified miscellaneous unit. Known ships of the Winter-class line include the Oni Acrisius, which was stationed at Argent Moon as an evacuation vessel, the UNSC From the Ashes, which was deployed on covert Office of Naval Intelligence operations, and the UNSC Winter, the lead ship of its class. The last known subclass within the Prowler classification is the Point-Blank class Prowler. The first Point-Blank class vessels came online at the height of the insurrection in 2510. They were constructed in parts and then assembled in deep space for secrecy. As of 2531, a single point-blank ship was partially constructed at construction platform 966A, otherwise known as Station Delphi. Point-blank class prowlers are versatile ships designed to be used as long-range motherships for smaller prowler complements on longer strategic missions away from human space, or as command posts for UNSC planning staff operations on the front lines. The point of no return served as the wartime strategic command and control platform for the Office of Naval Intelligence Section 3. Known ships of the Point-Blank class line include the UNSC Point-Blank, the lead ship of its class, the UNSC Point of No Return, which served as the wartime command and control platform for the aforementioned ONI Section 3, and the UNSC Vanishing Point, a logistics support vessel for Task Force Yama during Operation Silent Storm. And that just about does it for today's video. For those of you who are my lore fanatics, you may have noticed that I left out a few named ships in the UNSC fleet throughout the classes, but I just didn't feel like there was enough information to include these in the video, and this one's already a pretty long one, so if any more information does come out about them, I'd be more than happy to include them in a follow-up video. But thank you all very much for watching, and if you've made it this far into the video, I just want to let you know that I really appreciate your support. These videos, like always, are super fun to put together, and it's been a really nice pastime of mine, something I use to relax myself. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you guys have any suggestions as to what you'd like to see in the next video, please feel free to leave a comment. I always go through and read anything that you guys leave. I really appreciate it, and it brings me a lot of joy knowing that these videos are making their way out there and people are actually enjoying the content. So that's pretty much it for today, guys. Again, thank you so much, and I will see you next time here on Reclaimer ASMR.